It usually starts quietly. You're sitting on the edge of the bed in the morning, and one foot feels like it's fallen asleep, except it doesn't wake up. Or you're crossing the kitchen floor, and you can't quite tell whether your heel has landed. Maybe it's a burning along the soles at 2 in the morning, the kind that makes you push the blanket off one leg, pins and needles in the toes. A patch of skin that feels like it belongs to somebody else. If any of that sounds familiar, you are in enormous company. Peripheral neuropathy, nerve damage in the legs, feet, and hands, is estimated to affect around 20 million people in the United States alone, and it becomes considerably more common after the age of 60. And here is what almost everyone does next. They go looking for something to take. A pill for the burning, a cream for the tingling, a supplement a neighbor recommended. And when those only take the edge off, they usually hear some version of the same sentence. This is just part of getting older. Learn to live with it. That sentence is where most people stop looking. It shouldn't be, because some of the most interesting work on damaged peripheral nerves in the last 20 years didn't come out of a pharmacy at all. It came out of an exercise lab. Researchers studying people with damaged small nerve fibers found that a structured exercise program was associated with something they hadn't expected to see. Not just less discomfort reported. Measurable changes in the nerve fibers themselves. Today I'm going to walk you through 7 simple exercises you can do at home, most of them sitting in a chair, that target 4 separate things neuropathy takes away from your feet. All 7 fit inside about 15 minutes a day. But stay with me, because the order they come in matters as much as the exercises themselves. And to understand why, you need to know what's actually happening down there. Think of your peripheral nerves as the wiring running from your spinal cord out to the ends of your toes. The longest of them are close to a meter long, single cells, stretched further than anything else in your body. They carry traffic in both directions. Signals traveling in, telling your brain about pressure, temperature, and where your foot is in space, and signals traveling out, telling the small muscles of the foot when to contract. When that wiring gets damaged, the traffic doesn't stop cleanly. It garbles. A nerve that's lost part of its insulation doesn't go silent. It can fire when nothing is touching you at all. That's the burning at midnight, the tingling, the crawling, the electric zaps out of nowhere. And at the same time, real sensations stop arriving. That's the numbness. Which is why so many people describe the strangest combination in medicine. A foot that hurts and can't feel anything at the same time. Why does the wiring fail? The most common cause worldwide is diabetes. Blood sugar that stays high year after year is thought to damage the tiny vessels feeding the nerves, and a nerve with a poor blood supply tends to die back from its far end first. That's why symptoms usually start in the toes and work upward in that stocking pattern, rather than starting at the hip. But diabetes is far from the only route. Long-term heavy alcohol use, a shortage of vitamin B12, certain chemotherapy drugs, underactive thyroid, kidney disease, and some autoimmune conditions can all do it. And in a substantial number of cases, some estimates put it near a third, every test comes back normal and no cause is ever found. That's called idiopathic neuropathy. It's an honest label for a frustrating situation. Now, a lot of people ask about supplements at this point, so let's deal with that quickly and move on, because it isn't the main event. Alpha-lipoic acid has the most research behind it, an antioxidant studied particularly in diabetic nerve pain, where some trials have reported modest improvements in burning and tingling. Modest. Not dramatic. If your B12 is genuinely low, correcting that matters a great deal, and it's a simple blood test worth asking for by name. One warning while we're here. Vitamin B6 is sold everywhere as a nerve vitamin. But at high doses over a long period, B6 can itself cause peripheral neuropathy. People have made their symptoms worse, taking a supplement they believed was protecting them. Check the dose on the label, and check whether it's also hidden inside a multivitamin you're already taking. That's the supplement conversation. Useful around the edges. Not the reason you clicked on this. Here's what makes exercise different from everything else on that list. If you take a small sample of skin from the foot or lower leg, you can count the nerve endings in it under a microscope. It's a real measurement, not somebody rating their pain out of 10, but a count of nerve fibers in a piece of tissue. And in research where people with nerve damage completed a supervised exercise program over several months, Follow-up samples showed increased nerve fiber density compared with where they started. These were relatively small studies, and increased fiber density is not the same as symptoms disappearing, but it points somewhere important. For most of the last century, the working assumption was that peripheral nerve damage ran one way. You slowed it down if you were lucky. You managed the symptoms. You didn't get fibers back. That assumption now looks too pessimistic. Nerve regrowth is slow. The figure usually quoted is around a millimeter a day under good conditions, which is why nothing about this is fast. But under the right conditions, it happens. So the obvious question is, which exercises? Because it clearly isn't just any movement. And this is where most people go wrong, because they pick one exercise and do only that. The 7 exercises solve 4 different problems, and the first one is the foundation everything else sits on. Problem 1 is supply. Your nerves are fed by the smallest blood vessels in your body, a fine mesh of capillaries running alongside them. Damaged nerves are in most cases poorly supplied nerves. Rhythmic leg movement increases blood flow through those vessels, and regular aerobic activity appears to improve how well small vessels dilate over time. Whatever else you do, you can't repair a nerve you're struggling to deliver blood to. Exercise 1 is the seated march. Sit forward on a firm chair, back straight, feet flat. Lift one knee toward the ceiling a few inches, set it down, lift the other. Then find a rhythm, a walking rhythm, not a slow one. Let your arms swing naturally at your sides. Start with 2 minutes. If you're breathing slightly harder at the end, the pace is right. Over the following weeks, build toward 5, or split it into 2 shorter sessions a day. If you're steady on your feet and your doctor is happy with it, the same movement works standing, holding a chair back, lifting each knee to hip height. But seated is not the lesser option. For most people watching, seated is where you start. Now the march moves blood while you're moving. It does nothing for the other 23 hours, and that's where most of the damage to circulation quietly happens. Exercise 2 is the seated heel and toe raise. Same chair, feet flat. Keep your toes down and lift both heels as high as they'll go. Lower them. Then keep your heels down and lift both sets of toes toward your shins. Down again, heels up, toes up, alternating steady rhythm, 20 of each. It looks almost too small to count as exercise. Here's why it isn't. The calf is often called the second heart, and that isn't purely a figure of speech. The deep veins of the leg run through and between those muscles, and every contraction helps squeeze blood upward against gravity. Sit still for hours, which most of us do far more of after retirement than we ever did before, and that pump goes quiet. Blood pools. The tissue at the end of the line, which is exactly where your nerve damage is, gets the worst of it. Do this one every time you sit down to watch something. That's the whole trick with exercise too, so supply is handled. But better circulation does nothing at all for the second problem. And this is the one that doesn't hurt, which is precisely why it's dangerous. Those nerves aren't only carrying pain and temperature. They're carrying position. There's a constant stream of information going up from the soles of your feet telling your brain where the ground is, how your weight is distributed, whether you're tipping forward, whether the surface just changed from carpet to tile. It's called proprioception, and you have never once had to think about it. Neuropathy interrupts that stream, and your balance system gets no warning that its information has become unreliable. It just carries on working with worse and worse data. That matters more after 60 than it did at 40, because falls are among the leading causes of injury-related death in older adults. A broken hip frequently means surgery, weeks of reduced mobility, muscle loss on top of the muscle loss you already had. And for a great many people, it marks the line between living independently and not. I'm not saying that to frighten you. I'm saying it because balance responds to practice, often faster than anything else in this video. Your brain can learn to lean harder on your inner ear and your vision to compensate for what your feet are no longer reporting reliably. But only if you make it practice. Exercise 3 is the supported single-leg stand. Stand behind a sturdy chair or at a kitchen counter, both hands resting on it. Shift your weight onto your left foot and lift your right an inch or two off the floor. Hold, 10 seconds to start. Set it down, switch sides. 3 holds each leg, and as it gets easier, you don't hold longer. You hold with less support. 2 hands becomes 1 hand. 1 hand becomes 2 fingertips. 2 fingertips becomes a hand hovering an inch above the surface, ready but not touching. That progression is the exercise. The hovering hand is where the real training happens, because your balance system is finally doing the work itself, with a safety net 1 inch away. But almost nobody falls while standing still on one leg. You fall in the moment your base of support gets narrow, turning in a doorway, stepping around furniture, moving through a dark hallway at night. Exercise 4 is the heel-to-toe stand, still at the counter. Place one foot directly in front of the other, heel touching toe, as though standing on a line. Hold 20 seconds, then swap which foot leads. This narrows your base dramatically, which forces the small corrective muscles around your ankles to fire constantly. Tiny adjustments, several times a second, and once that feels steady, here's the version that does the most. Close your eyes. That sounds like a strange thing to ask of somebody with poor balance. Here's the logic. Standing there with your eyes open, your vision is quietly doing much of the work and covering for your feet. Close your eyes and vision comes out of the equation. Now your brain has to work with whatever signal is still arriving from the ground, and that's exactly the pathway you're trying to strengthen. Both hands stay on the counter for this one. 5 seconds is plenty at first. Never do the eyes closed version without something solid to hold, and not alone in the house the first few times. Now, that training teaches your brain to compensate. What it doesn't do is rebuild the machinery underneath it. And there's a third problem down there that almost nobody hears about. Nerves don't only carry signals in, they carry signals out to muscle. And there are around 20 small muscles inside each foot, the intrinsic muscles, doing the quiet work of holding your arch, spreading your toes and gripping the ground as you push off. When the nerve supply to those muscles fades, the muscles tend to waste, slowly, invisibly, over years. The arch flattens or sometimes claws upward. Toes begin to curl and stop lying flat, and as the shape of the foot changes, body weight stops spreading evenly across the sole and starts concentrating onto a few small points, usually under the ball of the foot. That's how calluses become pressure sores, on a foot that can't feel any of it happening. It's the reason foot care is taken so seriously in diabetes. Exercise 5 is the standing calf raise hands on the counter. Rise onto the balls of both feet as high as you can. Hold 2 seconds at the top, then lower slowly, slower down than up. 10 to 15 repetitions. The lowering matters more than the rise. That's where the muscle does most of its work. This strengthens the calf and the whole push-off mechanism. Push-off is often the first part of walking people lose, and it's why a shuffling gait develops. The foot stops rolling through and starts sliding along. But the calf is a large muscle on the outside of the leg. It doesn't reach the ones inside the foot, and those are the ones holding your arch together. Exercise 6 is the towel scrunch. Sit down, lay a small towel flat on the floor. Rest your bare foot on the near edge. Now use your toes only to drag the towel toward you, scrunching it underneath a little at a time until the whole thing has traveled under your foot. Flatten it out. Switch feet. Once or twice per foot is enough. If your toes cramp, stop. That's a weak muscle being asked to work, and cramping just means you found it faster than expected. This is the most direct exercise there is for the intrinsic foot muscles, and you'll feel muscles working that you had genuinely forgotten about. No towel handy? Tip 30 marbles onto the floor and pick them up one at a time with your toes. So that's supply, balance, and strength. And all three of them quietly assume something that may not be true. They assume the nerve can move. Nerves are not fixed cables pinned inside your leg. They slide through the tissue around them every time you bend a knee or flex an ankle. They have to because the distance between 2 points in your body changes constantly as you move. Where that sliding is restricted, the thinking in physical therapy is that ordinary movement starts to tug on the nerve instead of letting it glide, and an already irritable nerve gets more irritable. That's the fourth problem, and it's the one the other 6 exercises never touch. Exercise 7 is the seated nerve glide. Sit tall in your chair. Straighten one knee so the leg is out in front of you, foot off the ground. Now slowly pull your toes and foot back toward your shin, and as you do, let your chin drop gently toward your chest. Then reverse it. Point the foot away. Lift the head back up. Slow and smooth, roughly 2 seconds each way. 10 repetitions per leg. Head and foot moving in opposite directions is the whole point. It's designed to slide the nerve back and forth rather than stretch it at both ends. And that's the rule with this one. It must never be aggressive. This is not a stretch. If you feel strong pulling or your symptoms flare while you're doing it, you've gone too far. Shorten the range. Nerve glides are widely used in physical therapy and generally well tolerated, but gently is the entire instruction, so there are all 7. 4 problems, 7 exercises. And 7 separate exercises floating around in your head is not a plan, it's a list. Lists get forgotten by Thursday, so here is how they fit together. 15 minutes, 3 blocks of 5. The first 5 minutes are supply. Seated march for 2 to 3 minutes to get blood moving, then 20 heel raises and 20 toe raises. Your legs should feel warm before you attempt anything requiring balance. Always that order, never the reverse. The second 5 minutes are balance. 3 single leg holds each side, working through the support progression. Then heel to toe stands, 20 seconds each way, adding the eyes closed version when, and only when, the open-eyed one feels genuinely solid. The last 5 minutes are the feet themselves. 15 calf raises, 1 towel scrunch per foot, 10 nerve glides per leg, 5, 5, and 5. That's the entire program. And once you've done it 3 or 4 times, you'll stop needing to think about the order at all. If you can add one thing on top, add a walk. 10 to 15 minutes at a pace that makes conversations slightly harder. Walking covers circulation, balance, and foot loading at once. And it's what a good deal of the exercise research in this area is actually built on. 3 rules decide whether this works for you, and they matter more than any single exercise. Rule 1. Start at half. Whatever number I gave you, have it for the first 2 weeks. 10 repetitions instead of 20. 5 seconds instead of 10. Not caution for its own sake, it's that the people who do all 7 at full volume on day 1 are the people whose feet ache for 3 days and who never come back to it. Half is a strategy, not a compromise. Rule 2. Consistency over effort. Both nerve tissue and balance appear to respond to regular, repeated practice more than to occasional hard sessions. 15 minutes most days is likely to do more for you than an hour twice a week. So anchor it to something you already do without fail. After breakfast, before the evening news, it has to attach to an existing habit, or it quietly disappears inside a busy week. Rule 3. Look at your feet afterwards. Every day, sit down and actually look. Soles, heels, between the toes. Use a mirror on the floor or your phone camera if bending is difficult. You're looking for redness that doesn't fade, a new callus, a blister, a small cut, any break in the skin. This rule exists because of the numbness. You have a body part that can be injured without reporting it. A small problem caught the day it appears is usually trivial. The same problem found 3 weeks later may not be. Anything that isn't healing is a call to your doctor, not something to watch and hope about. So let's come back to where we started. For a long time, the standard advice for numb, burning feet was to manage the symptoms and accept the rest. But peripheral nerves appear to be more adaptable than that. And under better conditions, some of that damage may be recoverable in ways that have now been measured in tissue rather than only reported in questionnaires. You have 7 exercises, 4 problems they solve, 1 15-minute routine, and 3 rules that decide whether it sticks. A few things alongside it multiply the effect. If you have diabetes, blood sugar control is the most powerful lever you have, and nothing here replaces it. Ask about a B12 blood test if you've never had one. Wear shoes with room across the toes and check inside them with your hand before putting them on. If you smoke, understand that smoking narrows exactly the small vessels these exercises are trying to open. And bring all of this to your doctor, particularly if your symptoms are new, changing, or on one side only expect it to take time. Nerves rebuild slowly, and going a couple of months without a clear change is normal rather than a sign of failure. Numb feet after 60 are common. What they are not is a sentence you have to sit still and accept. If this was useful, a like genuinely helps the channel reach other people dealing with the same thing, and subscribing means you'll catch the next one. And tell me in the comments, which of the 7 are you starting with tomorrow? The seated march or the towel scrunch? One last thing, and it's important. This video is general information, not medical advice. If you have diabetes, an existing foot ulcer, severe balance problems, or any diagnosed condition affecting your legs or heart, speak to your doctor or a physical therapist before starting any new exercise program, and never attempt the balance work without something solid to hold on to.